Japan has historically been quite a closed economy. It's been very hard for foreign countries to sell their goods in Japan. But under Prime Minister Abe, he has indicated he wishes to open Japan up much more to the world. So this is a negotiation that potentially could be of a lot of interest to India. I mean, I know India is not in the near future looking for a negotiation that ambitious, but the idea of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is that it will be an open agreement, and that other countries, if they're willing to abide by the rules of the agreement, and there will be a negotiation for any country that enters on specific issues of concern to that country, but the idea is that it will be open. The United States and Japan are very much hoping that China at some point might become part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I think if that takes place, India would very much be the next logical candidate in succession. As you know, of course, India is negotiating a free trade arrangement with the European Union, which is stalled for the moment pending your election in the new government and what the new government's stance is on it. But many of the issues that are being negotiated with the European Union are exactly the ones that are on the table in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The second negotiation that our country is now engaged in, again quite unexpectedly, is with Europe. So Europe suffered greatly as a result of the financial crisis, and European leaders decided that one of the ways to increase growth in their economy was to open trade with the United States. So these are the two, if you consider Europe as one country, I know it's not, it's a group of countries, but if you consider Europe as one country, Europe and the United States are the two biggest trading countries in the world. And so the Europeans came to President Obama and said, we would like to negotiate a free trade agreement, and President Obama supported the idea. So the U.S. is now also engaged in this very ambitious negotiation with Europe. So if successful, these would be the two biggest trade agreements for our country since the one I covered as a journalist, the creation of the WTO in the Uruguay round of negotiations. So again, as with immigration, no, there's some bad news to go along with the good news. As I mentioned on immigration, it's difficult to persuade the Republicans in Congress to support that immigration overhaul. On trade, the president faces significant opposition from his own Democratic Party. And there are many Americans who are worried about openness to trade. I mean, much as you are here in India. I'm no expert on India, and I'll be very interested in hearing from you. But there's concern about what the impact will be on your own people from further opening to import from the rest of the world. I mean, a story I like to tell is if you go back to when I was a young person in the 1970s, you know, the suit I'm wearing and the shoes I'm wearing, everything would have been made in the United States. Today, none of what I'm wearing, I haven't actually looked at it, but I'm certain that nothing that I'm wearing was made in the United States. It was mostly made in Asia. Some of it was probably made in Central America. Automobiles. My parents drove American cars. Everybody drove American cars. In my life, I've driven Japanese cars and Korean cars. And again, that's quite similar to many people of my generation. And that's positive in very many ways, right? My clothes are cheaper, in real terms, much cheaper than they were in my parents' generation. The automobiles are cheaper, and they're better. I mean, the cars are very good. And American cars are getting better as a result as well, because they have to compete with the imported cars. The downside is that there are many fewer Americans working in these industries. You know, in the 1970s, there were well over 1 million, close to 1.5 million Americans working making clothing. There are almost no Americans who work making clothing anymore. But the only thing that's still made in the United States is blue jeans. So, so we still make good blue jeans, but almost nothing else. It's all made elsewhere in the world. Similarly with cars. In the 1950s, in Detroit, the city where my mother was born, General Motors employed hundreds of thousands of people in that city. There were 2 million people who lived in Detroit in the 1950s. And I know for India that's not a big city, but for the United States, 2 million people was a big city in the 1950s. Well, General Motors used to have 2 million employees in the United States. Today it has several hundred thousand. The city of Detroit has shrunk from 2 million people to 700,000 people. Everybody has left the city of Detroit because there are no jobs in the city of Detroit anymore. And so there are Americans, again, particularly in the President's party, who are worried about additional openness to trade, what that will mean for U.S. jobs. Now, I believe there are many things that are going on. It's not just about trade. A lot of it's about technology, right? Our cars now aren't made by people as much anymore. They're made by robots. And the people you need to make cars are the people who use the computer systems that control the robots that make the cars. And so these are changes that are occurring everywhere in the world. So this is not all about trade. But the result is that there are many Americans who are scared of trade. So what we have in my country is really two historic decisions that will take place within the next year or two. And the one historic decision is whether to rewrite our very old immigration laws and really open ourselves up to the best and brightest in the world in a way we never have been before. Or, excuse me, I rephrase that, much more than we have been today. The United States already attracts many excellent immigrants, but the idea is it could attract many more. And then on trade, whether to further open up to the rest of the world in these two very, very ambitious trade agreements. So let me stop there. I know you'll have specific concerns that deal with India, and I'll answer those to the best of my ability. Again, I'm not a specialist on India, and I'll be very interested in hearing from you and your opinions and what may concern you about U.S. immigration laws or about U.S. trade policies. And thank you very much for listening. Again, I'm honored to be with you.